All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating policy advisory report from Capital University, published in May 2026. It exposes a massive, almost unbelievable irony in Philippine public education funding. We're going to break down exactly what's breaking the system right now, and more importantly, how to finally fix it. It's a deep dive into the unseen, everyday mechanics of how schools actually run, and why, unfortunately, good intentions at the top often fail to reach the students at the bottom. We have to start with this wild paradox. Why do local public schools have the autonomy and literally have the cash allocated to them, yet their classrooms are still falling apart? I mean, it completely defies logic, right? We constantly hear about underfunded schools in the news, but the reality on the ground? The funds often exist. They're sitting right there. They just aren't moving. Basically, there's money in the bank, but no chalk in the classroom. So to understand this bottleneck, we really need to look at MOEE. That stands for Maintenance and Other Operating Expenses. Think of this as the absolute lifeblood of a school's daily operations. We're talking about statutory allocations meant to cover everything, from paying the basic internet bill to funding critical, time-sensitive roof repairs after a bad storm. When this money gets tied up, the entire school suffers, and you've got principals left scrambling just to keep the lights on.
Okay, moving to Section 1, the promise of autonomy.
There is a huge gap here between intent and execution. The original policy intent was great. It was designed to empower schools with fast, localized solutions, give principals the freedom and the resources to act immediately on what their specific students need. But the grim reality? It's paralyzed by idle funds, severe audit anxiety, delayed repairs, and substandard outputs. So the autonomy absolutely exists on paper, but the real-world execution is just completely frozen in place.
Let's look at why that happens in Section 2, the red tape trap.
The report highlights this really crippling phenomenon, and they call it compliance anxiety. School heads are literally deliberately delaying necessary purchases simply out of fear of getting a Commission on Audit disallowance or some harsh audit sanction. It's crazy, because the very anti-corruption measures designed to protect the money are terrifying principals into total paralysis. They are so worried about making a procedural error that they choose to just not spend the money at all, even when their school desperately needs it.
And because of this fear, you get this bizarre and honestly damaging spending cycle. For 9 whole months, quarters 1 through 3, funds just sit there, idle. The money is ready to be used, but nothing happens. Then, panic sets in during quarter 4. Schools are suddenly forced into these rushed, non-strategic spending sprees right at the end of the year just to exhaust the budget before they lose it. They end up completely ignoring the urgent needs from when they actually arose earlier in the year.
At the heart of all this dysfunction is what we can call the educator versus accountant dilemma. Think about it for a second. We train our principals in pedagogy, curriculum design, student development, right? Yet, these complex procurement laws like RA 9184 basically demand they act as professional procurement officers overnight. Suddenly, they're expected to navigate highly technical bidding requirements, rigorous canvassing, and complex supplier negotiations without any formal background in finance. It's an incredibly unfair expectation.
And to make matters even worse, these principals are caught in an overlapping nightmare of paperwork. On one hand, you have the Department of Education pushing for direct release and autonomy. But that crashes headfirst into the Commission on Audit, demanding unyielding, super strict documentation. This total lack of harmony between agencies forces school heads to duplicate their efforts, burning countless hours meant for instructional leadership on endless, redundant paper trails. The administrative burden is just absolutely crushing.
Which brings us to the solution in Section 3, the proposed framework.
So, the proposed fix is the Enhanced School-Based Financial Management and Accountability Framework, or the ESP-FMAF, but it's essential to understand that this isn't just another legal mandate to memorize. No, it's a context-responsive survival toolkit. It's designed specifically to replace all that crippling compliance anxiety with one unified, smooth operational pipeline. The whole goal is to make doing the right thing the absolute easiest thing for a principal to do.
How does it cut through the red tape? With 5 key interconnected tools. First, it strictly aligns all budgets with the school improvement plan. Second, it uses a quarterly operations tracker to catch any spending delays early. Third, a standardized documentation toolkit to totally eliminate the guesswork. Throw in institutionalized peer mentoring and a transparency dashboard, and boom, you finally link strategic, long-term planning directly to everyday procurement.
Because let's face it, the old system was entirely compliance-driven, and it was failing miserably. It was a paper-heavy, fragmented mess that focused heavily on retroactive checks. Essentially, it was trying to catch mistakes after the fiscal year was already over. It fostered this toxic, fear-driven auditing environment where the primary goal for a school head was simply avoiding penalties, instead of actually utilizing funds to improve the quality of education.
While the new framework flips that completely on its head, instead of punishing schools after the fact, it offers real-time tracking, SIP-aligned spending, and accessible digital dashboards. It provides simplified procurement windows and proactive continuous operational coaching while the school year is actually happening. It's all about successfully guiding principals through the process rather than just waiting in the bushes for them to trip over a bureaucratic hurdle.
Moving on to Section 4, Building Financial Capacity.
Because all these new tools are completely useless if they just create more administrative burnout for the local staff, right? To prevent overwhelming everyone, implementation is rolled out in 3 highly practical phases. Quarter 1 focuses entirely on preparation and aligning the budget correctly. Quarters 2 and 3 shift into active execution, supported by real-time coaching from the division office. And finally, Quarter 4 is dedicated to evaluation and synthesis, taking all the year's insights and turning them into a much stronger, more accurate budget for the next year.
A major cultural shift here is abandoning those isolated one-time seminars. Instead, we're talking about continuous peer mentoring and establishing local financial learning circles. High-performing school heads, the ones with remarkably clean audit records, actively partner up with those who are currently struggling with compliance. It's educators actively helping educators, building a real, supportive community of practice right within their own districts.
Finally, let's look at Section 5, the classroom impact. This is the most crucial piece of the puzzle, where the policy finally meets the students. This is where we translate dry financial acronyms into real-world stakes. Streamlining this procurement process means modern teaching aids actually arrive on time, preventing lesson disruptions. It means severe structural issues like leaking roofs or faulty electrical wiring are repaired instantly before a student can get hurt. Ultimately, it rebuilds public trust from the ground up by showing the community that their schools are well-managed and safe.
Replacing a culture of fear with strategic, transparent spending creates a massive domino effect. It directly reduces audit errors and raises the school's overall performance ratings. But most importantly, it guarantees that resources are allocated equitably. It actually takes into account things like geographic isolation and local poverty incidents, ensuring the most vulnerable schools get the support they deserve without delay.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this thought. What would your local public school look like if its budget actually reached the classroom on time? Empowering our educators with practical financial tools, instead of burying them in red tape, could completely transform the safety, quality, and future of your community's public schools. It's for sure a change worth fighting for. Thanks for learning with me today.